Here on the ground, change happens fast. Problems feel frequent and urgent. It's loud and anxiety runs high. From a satellite view, the Earth looks the same as it did thousands of years ago. We've been here before. Let's learn from our past and shoot for a better future.
Hello and welcome to this episode of A Satellite View. I'm Todd Mikkelson, your host, speaking at you from Sunday, March 2nd, 2025 in the space and time continuum. Again, an adventure-filled week. I want to also tell you about an interesting movie that I saw and see what you think of it. But first, I think we need to start here.
For Vice President J.D. Vance and his family, following yesterday's fiasco there in the Oval Office with Ukrainian President Zelensky. There's some new video now we have showing the vice president being greeted by protesters holding anti-Vance, pro-Ukraine signs as he makes his way there to Vermont for a ski resort vacation. More protesters met the Vance family outside of the resort. And the family ultimately had to move to an undisclosed location.
Had to move to an undisclosed location because the good people of Vermont found out he was taking a skiing vacation at a ski resort in Vermont, and they lined the streets on the way so that he would see. And from the video, there were hundreds of people, and they had signs like, "Go ski in Russia, traitor," things like that. Poor JD. Poor JD. There's also video of him skiing down a hill, and he's not a very good skier. Not that I'm the greatest skier, but he looks like he's not having fun skiing. He looks like the way he holds his body, but he's awkward every which way, And Saturday Night Live did a great spoof in their opening last night of the horribleness that occurred in our Oval Office. It's not Trump's Oval Office. It's not J.D. Vance's. It's not the Trump-Vance or Trump-Musk White House. It is ours. It's ours. I spoke with a couple people who were talking about this is going to turn the world against the United States. It's turning the world against Trump. European leaders understand what's going on here more than we do. In the history of the world, other countries have had overthrown elections, election interference, cheating in every which way for hundreds, thousands of years. We think it hasn't happened here yet. It has. We just don't recognize it because we're the United States, If anything, I think other world leaders look at it as though Americans are being held hostage by Trump and Elon Musk. And since it was Trump and Elon Musk, I think J.D. Vance felt the need to I need to be in there. I need to get in there. So he went into the Oval Office. Why? Why was the vice president in on this meeting with a president of another country? Now, I'm assuming you know the news of what happened. Ukrainian President Zelensky came to the United States. Now, I thought that was weird last week when Trump called him a dictator, said, he's an unelected dictator. They need to get things. Zelensky needs to get things moving or he's not going to have a country. He said that at least twice publicly, called Zelensky a dictator. And then, I think it was on Wednesday, he had the British Prime Minister, it might have been Thursday, in the Oval Office. A funny thing I'll stick in here. On Monday, I think it was, Macron, the French president came in, or prime minister came in, and actually walked all over Trump, which was pretty remarkable because Trump usually just keeps talking over people. And for some reason, he let Macron get away with actually putting his hand on Trump's arm and correcting some of his lies. It was pretty remarkable. And I also point out that Macron looked like he was having a fun, enjoyable visit to the White House. He looked perfectly relaxed, jovial, kind of had a little bit of a smile on his face all the time, looked comfortable all the time. Trump looked pissed off and angry. Then he has the British Prime Minister, and he's asked a question in that little gaggle, I think they call it. they said, when Zelensky comes on Friday, are you going to apologize to him for calling him a dictator? And Trump went, did I say that? I can't believe I said that. Next question. All right. What was that? And then, and I remember even before that, I thought it's really weird that Zelensky's coming for a White House meeting with Trump, because he just called Zelensky a dictator. And Zelensky said, I'm not signing all of Ukraine's minerals away to the United States. So I just thought it was really weird. Well, Trump was told to, similar to this movie I saw, now that I'm thinking about it, this scene is similar to a movie that I saw that I want to tell you about. Anyway, he has Zelensky come. He has J.D. Vance sitting there. They're kind of just doing the same BS that normally goes on in these, and the press is in there. And then J.D. Vance kind of interrupts everything and is like, did you ever say thank you to us? You're a jerk. You know that, buddy? J.D. Vance, I think, doesn't understand what's going on at all. He doesn't understand how big this mess he's gotten himself into really is. Trump doesn't care what the rest of the world thinks of him. He's got a different motivation. So the rest of the world, then they come together today or yesterday or today. Within 48 hours, they have Zelensky. I think yesterday they had meetings with Zelensky in other foreign countries. And then today they're meeting and they're talking about supporting Ukraine. And apparently, and I haven't been updated on these news stories. They're ongoing as I'm recording this, but it sounds like Britain's really taken a lead in making sure Ukraine's getting what they need. And the European Union and NATO seems to be having the attitude of, we're going to go on the way that we're supposed to and the way we normally would, except we understand that right now the United States is not with us. And by that, they mean what's going on in the United States right now with having Donald Trump hold Americans hostage is making it so that they cannot cooperate with us. So again, the world's not against the United States. The world is against Donald Trump. Another thing that happened this week, we could talk about this thing for the entire show and what is going to happen in the near future. I have a lot of ideas about that, and a lot of other people do too. I'm not going to do that. You're going to get that everywhere else. I don't know if you know, and I talked to some people also this week and tested some of these stories. Like, did you know this? And they're like, no, I didn't know that. One of the stories is about an arrest made in Romania that is a huge deal. Also from Romania, there were the Tate brothers were being held in Romania because they have been accused of sex trafficking, young underage girls, and all kinds of nasty things. Nasty things. Pedophilia, sex trafficking. The overall manipulation of women, they have outwardly said that women should not have any role. They said every woman in the world is nothing but a sex worker. Okay? So that's these guys. They were not allowed to leave Romania. Donald Trump pressured Romania to let them leave. And where did they go? They went to Florida. I'm sure they'll be sitting in Mar-a-Lago soon. Alina Habba, Trump's, I don't know what she is anymore. She was a lawyer for him. There's a video of her saying, hey, I'm a big fan, talking to one of the Tate brothers. This is happening simultaneously while all of the maggots who supposedly hate pedophilia, they want the Epstein files to be released. Now, a lot of the Epstein files have been released. There were airplane logs, telephone logs, all kinds of stuff released over, some of it kind of more than a few years ago. Donald Trump's name is all over it. So Pam Bondi is like, she makes a big deal. Yeah, we're going to release the Epstein files. We're also going to release the JFK files, the MLK files, the UFO stuff. all the stuff you've always wanted. It's going to be brought to you by the Trump administration and his DOJ. I'm Pam Bondi. I'm going to make sure you get all of the salacious stuff that you think you want. Now, the Maggots and QAnon and everything have thought that Jeffrey Epstein, they won't be happy until enough Epstein files are released that prove that, Barack Obama eats children for breakfast, literally. They won't be satisfied until that's revealed. So they're never going to be satisfied. They're thinking it's all of the, Democrats, the Democratic deep state, this demon ring ran by Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, and that's what they're thinking. In reality, most of the Epstein files would really reveal a lot of things that Donald Trump doesn't want us to know about him. And we all know that. And as a matter of fact, it's like, who cares anymore? Who killed Epstein? Did he kill himself? Or did Hillary go in there and kill him? Now, the people who were in charge of his safety was Donald Trump, his administration, and especially his Department of Justice, led by Bill Barr. I almost always say Bill Burr. What? Bill, I never was with... That's my Bill Burr imitation, if you know who he is. Anyway, Bill Barr was responsible for the safety of Jeffrey Epstein while he was in custody. Oh, the cameras didn't work. We don't know what happened. There were 2 guards. I don't know, they were sleeping? There were at least 2 cameras. Both of them just seemed to blink out. During that period of time, the last we saw Jeffrey Epstein, he was sitting in his cell. When the cameras came back on, it was hanging from the ceiling. From a sheet or something. Back to Bill Burr. Anyway. But yeah, I'm sure it was Hillary. Pam Bondi went on Fox News and said, tomorrow I'm releasing the Epstein files. They invite, I think, 5 of these, the freakiest of the freaks, and they call them social media influencers. One of them's called DC Drano. One of them's called Libs of TikTok. These are all really, really crazy, far-right, loony bin, conspiracy theory, blah, blah, blah. They're the ones who think Barack Obama eats babies for breakfast. And they're invited to the White House. And they're each given a folder, kind of a thin folder, that says, hey, this is the Epstein files. They open it up, it's all redacted. There's even less information in these binders than has previously been made public because there's more redactions because, of course, they cross out Trump's name. And you can even compare the pages they were given to the actual pages that were released years ago to the public, and what they crossed out is Trump. And then all of these influencers, quote unquote, made their statements and said, this is the most transparent government. The Trump administration is the most transparent presidency ever in the history of the United States. And they're all exactly worded the same. They're all cut and paste. So it was just a huge charade. And then it was revealed. And a lot of other crazies like Laura Loomer, if you know who she is. Also, I think her name is Laura Luna. Anyway, she's a representative, crazy. Of course, her credentials for being in Congress was that she used to be a model. So she's a crazy right-wing freak. She wants all this stuff to be revealed. They got really pissed at Pam Bondi and the Trump administration for doing this charade. So then Pam Bondi writes a letter to Kash Patel, chewing him out. Hey, I was told the FBI gave us everything. This is nothing. You need to give us everything. And Kash Patel's like, he's apparently in Las Vegas. That's where he's going to have his office. That's where he's going to be the head of the FBI from. Yeah, I'll be the head of the FBI, but I don't want to move to Washington, D.C. I want to hang out at Las Vegas, where what happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. So, in reality, nothing happened except this stupid charade. And that was going on as the Tates, who are actual pedophiles and sex abusers and sex traffickers, They're let back into Florida, welcomed. And that actually pissed off DeSantis, even. He didn't know about it. He's the governor of Florida. He's like, no, these guys aren't welcome here. What the hell? So it's just a big mess. The Trump administration is in a big, huge mess. And like we've said here many times, it seems like a lot of horribleness is going on. And that is true, but in the long and big picture, the long scheme and big picture of things, nothing is going on. They're unable. They'll make all these statements and scare the crap out of everybody. But when it comes down to it, they are unable to do anything because none of them know what the hell's going on. Pam Bondi doesn't know how to be the head of the DOJ. Kash Patel doesn't know how to be the head of the FBI. We could go down a long list. We're going to take a break. I'm going to come back with a couple other things, and I want to tell you about that movie I saw, all right? So let's take a short break. We'll be right back on A Satellite View.
But some look at this moment and rightly feel the weight of history. Some see the flames on our horizons, the rising waters in our cities, the shadows gathering over our democracy, and ask, what do we do now? But we know exactly what to do, because we have done it before, and we will do it again. We use our power, we organize, mobilize, we educate, and we advocate. Because you see, our power has never come from having an easy path. Our strength flows from our faith. Faith in God, faith in each other, and our refusal to surrender to cynicism and destruction. Not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. Not because victory is guaranteed, but because the fight is worth it. And while we have no illusions about what we are up against in this chapter in our American story, this chapter will be written not simply by whoever occupies the Oval Office, nor by the wealthiest among us. The American story will be written by you. Written by us, by we the people. I thank you, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
That's the President of the United States, who actually won this election. This is a speech she didn't give during the campaign. She gave this speech on the 23rd, I believe. 5 days ago? I guess it was last weekend at the NAACP Awards, where she accepted an award. And the reason she talks about that we've been through this before and we've gone through this before is because it's the NAACP, and it's Black American people who have had to go through the scariest of scary shit in this country for hundreds of years. And it goes on today as mothers and fathers have to tell their children, they have to teach their children more about the law than any white kid ever learns about the law, because they need to know what their rights are. White kids, 16, I got pulled over plenty for speeding when I was 16 years old. I got pulled over because I was 16, but I was still a white kid, so I didn't have to worry. Black kids my age, or any age, not even kids, getting pulled over by the cops, it's very scary. They need to have been taught what their rights are and aren't, because the police, well, that's a whole, we're not going to go into that right now. But this is Kamala Harris, our president, sounding like our president, as opposed to what Donald Trump has been doing. I gotta tell you about this movie I saw. So it takes place starting in the 1970s, and it's the Soviet Union. It's kind of an old school, at least it starts back in the Cold War era, where the Soviet Union and the KGB were always looking for spies. They were looking for people to infiltrate from Western countries. They loved to hook up with like prominent business people who were rich or who they thought were rich. And they would study different people and they would find one and go, okay, this person is perfect. They like to be flattered. We can get them probably pretty easy. This person also really likes women. So let's introduce him to one of our most beautiful models from the Soviet Union and have her be all over him, right? She's worked for us before. It's one of our kind of spies. She has worked with us. She's not a total spy, but she's worked with us. She will do what we tell her to do. Let's hook her up with this guy. And then in the movie, they end up getting married. Then it takes a while, and Russia keeps gaining more what's called compromat. They keep gaining more and more stories, including him, having sex with other people other than his wife, and all of this stuff. So they gain all this quote-unquote compromat on him. And of course, his wife then, she knows a lot of this stuff. She knows a lot about what the KGB is doing. She knows a lot of secrets. She also knows a lot of secrets about this guy that she married, this big businessman. But she coerces him to Russia to make a deal. He happened to be into real estate. So they want to make a hotel over there. She gets him to come and start talking to them. The KGB recruits him because they've shown him all this compromat on him. They're also helping him because he's really bad at being a businessman. So he is in financial trouble. So Russia helps him with all of that. But they want him to do certain things. He takes out an ad in prominent newspapers, the Boston Globe, the New York Times, a couple other papers, full-page ads talking about that the United States should leave NATO. So this is the late 80s, right? 1987 to be exact. His relationship with his wife is getting worse and worse. He ends up raping her. She wants to divorce him, and in the divorce papers, she talks about being raped. He makes her sign non-disclosure agreements, and part of that is because Russia tells him you need to have her sign non-disclosure agreements because she can't talk about any of our secrets. She does sign those agreements. They get divorced. He marries some other hot blonde woman, ends up divorcing her, and gets married to another, actually a Slovakian, but of course, that was kind of part of the Soviet thing from the old school days. And the Soviet Union is gone now because now it's the 90s and getting into the early aughts. And he's doing horrible financially. You, as a prominent businessman, are telling the United States that it's a bad idea for them to stay in NATO. We'll give you money to run these ads in newspapers. We'll make sure that you're financed well enough to do these things for us. He ends up still sleeping with other people and doing all the things. They gather more and more compromat on him. But they're able to get him all the way to the presidency because the United States is like a sleeping giant, sleeping being the operative word. So Russia figures out how to rig the election enough that this guy actually wins a presidential election. They rig it enough that he wins the primary to become, in the movie, he becomes a Republican, and he becomes the Republican candidate, and then he gets all the way into the White House. So he's trying to do stuff for them, but he's so bad at it that he kind of becomes useless to them. And then he loses his re-election, even with the rigging that they're still doing. So now they realize, okay, we need you to run again. this time we're going to compensate. Actually, in the movie, they end up overcompensating in their cheating in the next election. So they overcompensate. They hire this guy. They get this other guy involved, and he's this billionaire businessman as well, but he's like the smart guy. And he's got control over this whole satellite system. And they get him to line up the satellites to change the voting results in the computers on election day. So then this other bad businessman, the main character, wins this election. But of course, everyone knows that it's a farce. All the other countries know because Russia's still trying to take over all countries. And they have this other billionaire, whiz kid interfere in other elections as well. So the whole world now knows that these guys are cheating, and the world knows that this guy actually lost the election, even though he's been put back into the White House. And now he's desperate because he needs a place to go, because he knows he's going to get busted. He knows he's going to get kicked out of the presidency and probably arrested by the international criminal courts. So he wants to stay in Russia, but Russia doesn't want him anymore because he's become useless. So they give him one last thing. There's a war going on in a country that used to be part of Russia. Russia has invaded that country, trying to take their land back, and they're just ruthlessly killing all the people in that country. So they get this guy who's now the president of the United States to have the president of this country that they're trying to take over and bring him into the White House and berate him and cut him off, because now it's down to the final moments. Russia is in shambles. Their economy is decimated. Now the president, the main guy, is scared because his own people want to kill him because everybody hates him. The whole world hates him. The whole world hates this guy who's now the United States president. And Russia is like, you were supposed to give me this country. You screwed it up in your first term, and now you're screwing it up again. Just bring the guy in, get him to give you the country so that you can give it to me. Make him sign a deal maybe about giving you all of that country's minerals, because that's mainly what I want. This is a movie that I saw. It was unbelievable. I mean, who would ever think that the Russians would actually get somebody into the White House? Twice. Does that sound unbelievable to you? Here's from the real world. A former senior Soviet KGB spy chief has claimed that Donald Trump was recruited as a spy by Russia intelligence as early as 38 years ago. That would be 1987. In an extraordinary post on Facebook on 20th of February, just a couple days ago, Alnur Masayev, I should get his name right because we're going to talk about Alnur Masayev, let's say it like that. He was a successor to the Soviet-era KGB in Kazakhstan. He claimed he was personally aware of Trump's recruitment by the agency in 1987. The recruitment, he said, was undertaken by his own KGB department. One of the key roles of that department was to acquire intelligence through business leaders in Western countries. This guy is being quoted. In 1987, I served in the 6th Directorate of the KGB of the USSR in Moscow. The most important area of work of the 6th Directorate was the recruitment of businessmen from capitalist countries. It was that year that our office recruited 40-year-old businessman from the United States, Donald Trump, under the pseudonym Krasnov. He added, in the activity of intelligence agencies, as in life, everything is possible, even the wildest and most incredible things. For example, recruitment of future leaders of a state and even the President of the United States. Now, this guy fled in 2007. He fled the country because he had to, because they were going to kill him. He survived a attempted kidnapping. This has been confirmed, according to Oleg Kulygin, a former KGB general who served in foreign intelligence and counterintelligence and during the Soviet era was Vladimir Putin's direct superior. Trump was on the radar of Soviet and Russian intelligence as early as the early 80s and even 70s, with claims that KGB had compromise on him. Yuri Shvets, another former Soviet spy residing in the U.S., claims that the USSR cultivated Donald Trump since the 1970s, supporting his political ambitions and flattering him. According to him, Trump became a target of Soviet and Czechoslovakian intelligence in 1977 after marrying Czech model Ivana I can't pronounce her last name, but that's Ivana is Trump's first wife. Now, because of her non-disclosure agreement, she, when asked, when Trump was running for president back in 2016, she was asked about the rape, and she said, well, he didn't really rape me. But her non-disclosure agreement was about to expire. And 3 days, this is in real life, this is just a couple years ago, what, in 2022 maybe? It was going to expire in 3 days, and Ivana fell down the stairs and died suddenly. Now, in the movie, they kill her, and this guy who's president, he knows all about it. He didn't do it. But when he heard that she fell down the stairs and died, he knew what was going on. That was in the movie. So, I don't know if that's true in real life. Just check yourself and see how you feel about that movie. Is that movie true? How do you feel? Do you think it's true? I mean, why does Trump have to constantly defend himself from Russia, Russia, Russia? It was a hoax. It was all about, what's his name, Biden? I can't remember, with the laptop from hell. Hunter. He went into that in the Oval Office on Friday, sitting next to Zelensky. He repeated all that crap. And the other part of the movie about the whiz kids stealing elections from other countries, here's something that you may not know. Friedrich Merz, he's the new chancellor of Germany. He hasn't taken power yet, but he just won the election last weekend. And the first thing he said in his acceptance speech, he included, the election interference performed on this election by Elon Musk and others from Washington, D.C. were just as egregious as the election interference from Russia. He's pissed at Elon Musk and Donald Trump. You know, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think the next couple of weeks we're going to be in for a lot of surprises, especially after this BS that went on in the Oval Office. Now, here's another thing. Romania's pro-Russia presidential election frontrunner, Kalin Garagici, was questioned for hours on Wednesday by prosecutors after being taken in by police in Bucharest in relation to last November's controversial canceled vote that he won. Now, Bucharest is in Romania. He was indicted on 6 counts and put under judicial control for 60 days. He says on Romanian TV channel Digi24, American sanctions will clarify the situation in Romania. Now, he didn't specify what that entitled, but seemed to suggest the United States would come to his support after Republican Vice President J.D. Vance and President Donald Trump's billionaire advisor Elon Musk have pointed to the situation in Romania to accuse the European Union of cracking down on free speech and other civil rights. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment. So you heard Romania said, no, this election doesn't count, and they're redoing their election because this guy won, even though he didn't even run a campaign or even like raise money or anything. And they think the votes were changed somehow. That's what they think. They think the same thing in Germany. France had election interference. Sounds kind of like the same thing as well. Elon Musk, what's he doing? What's he doing? There's a report that the ICC is finishing a whole investigation as well. What's that going to reveal? I think March is going to be an explosive month. Now, these are a couple news stories that you probably didn't know about. This arrest in Romania and this brand new reporting from this KGB guy who just came out a few days ago, or about a week ago, and talked again. He's another guy repeating the same story. Remember Lev Parnov? I've named 4 different guys now who have said Donald Trump was recruited by the KGB, and he's been working for Russia on kind of under blackmail. That's how he got put in the White House. He didn't think he was going to win in 2016. People around him know that. Also, people around him have always wondered as to why he was so soft on Putin. They couldn't understand it. But the way the news is handled in this country, we don't get the real news. That story I read you is from Byline Times. And their motto is, what the papers don't say. Just to kind of let you in on things that I'm sure you're not hearing elsewhere. The people are showing up still in protests. I played you, they even showed up for J.D. Vance's vacation. But they're showing up in cities. They're showing up in capital cities. They're showing up in town hall meetings. Republicans are running scared. They're starting to cancel their town hall meetings. The people are showing up. You heard Kamala, the power. We have the power of the people. We need to keep putting pressure on them. James Carville thinks that we don't need to because he thinks that the Trump administration is going to completely collapse within 30 days. So I don't really agree with him in that we should just sit here and watch it and let it happen. I think we need to keep doing what we're doing. But it's pretty astonishing that James Carville, who's usually right about things, whether you like him or not, I can't decide if I do or not. It's like sometimes I think, wow, yeah, that's cool. And then sometimes I think, God, that guy's a dick. But this is what he's saying. He doesn't say stuff unless he's going to be correct. He's careful. And he says the Trump administration is going to completely collapse. What does completely collapse mean? Does that mean just Trump leaving and having J.D. Vance take his place? Completely collapse within 30 days. And he said that a few days ago. So March 2025 is going to be an explosive month. I feel extremely optimistic. We need to stick together. The world is not against the United States. The world is against Donald Trump. Donald Trump's polls are tanking. He's got historically bad polls right now. He beat the record of the last time he was president as far as having the lowest numbers in polls. 51% disapproval rating in one poll. That's not supposed to be happening when you've only been president again for a month. So we got to keep the pressure on. We got to keep the pressure on. We got to keep the vibes moving. All right? You and I are going to stick together. I'm going to keep you informed. This has kind of been some fun stuff. Get your popcorn out. March is going to be very interesting, I think, in a lot of good ways. We're going to see a lot of things that are going to make us feel better. Trump doesn't have supposedly any power. And what he did on Friday, to me, is just final proof that he's working for Russia. He's working for Putin. He went against everybody. Nobody thinks that we should not support Ukraine. Nobody thinks Ukraine started this war against Russia. He doesn't care. He needed to do that. Why? Thank you so much for coming and listening to A Satellite View. Go find us on YouTube. You can just punch in A Satellite View podcast and you'll find us on YouTube. Follow my Instagram at Todd Mikkelson. I'm excited. I really am. I truly am. For one thing, it's not 13 below zero as a high temperature in Minnesota anymore. So that's making me feel a little better too. Again, thank you for coming. We're going to stick together. This is going to go very well. It is. It doesn't feel like it right now. It's scary as hell. I understand that. And things are not going great for everybody. There are things that are going really horrible. There are some more stories I want to tell about that. Very interesting stuff that happened. I'll try and remember that next week. But it's temporary. And I know that doesn't help for the people who are being affected by this, but it's part of everybody turning against Trump, really, which is something that needs to happen. I keep trying to end the show, and I fail. Thanks again for coming and listening to A Satellite View. We'll speak at you next week.
You've been listening to A Satellite View with Todd Mikkelson. Go to toddmikkelson.com for links and more information.